2.2, find slope and rate of change. The slope definition is, it's represented by M. It's a non-vertical line. That's the ratio of vertical change over horizontal change. Easier way to say that is it's rise over run. Parallel, two lines in a plane that don't intersect. Perpendicular, two lines that intersect at right angles. Rate of change, how much one quantity changes relative to another quantity. If you have trouble thinking about this, rate of change might be a road slopes up the mountain at a 12% grade. So it goes up 12 feet for every 100 feet it goes across. Or I can say the rate of change of my paycheck is, maybe if you were working at a minimum paying job, $7.75 per hour. So that's just rate of change. Okay, slope of a line. The slope M of a non-vertical line is the ratio of vertical change, the rise, to horizontal change, the run. So the formula in algebra for slope is right here, the difference in the y's over the difference in the x's. And a poem that we use in maybe 6th grade is slope is easy and fun, it's rise over run. Okay, so when we find slope on example 1, we are going to take one of the y's, and it actually doesn't matter which one you start with. A lot of students will ask me, how do you know which one is x1 and which point is x2? Doesn't matter, just so you go back to the same point to start the y's with. So if I say y2 is 7 minus y1 is 3 over 6 minus 1, that equals 4 over 5. Now let me flip those around and prove to you that it doesn't matter which way I start with. So if I said 3 minus 7 over 1 minus 6, I would get negative 4 over negative 5. And then when I cleaned up those signs, it would still be 4/5. So the slope of the line is 4 over 5. Classification of lines by slope. The slope of a line indicates whether the line rises from left to right, falls from left to right, is horizontal is vertical. So if you have a positive slope, always, and I'm very bad at drawing cars, but I always say if the car goes up the mountain, it's positive. If the car goes down the mountain, it's negative. If the car is going nowhere because it's flat, then it's 0. And if the car is falling off because it's straight up and down, it's undefined. Another way, or another to think about undefined, it would be dividing by 0 at the bottom. So some number dividing by 0. And you know you can never divide by 0 because it just never works. Whatever number we put up here, it's still 3 at the bottom, so I would never get anywhere. So if you divide by 0, it's undefined slope. Okay, example 2. Without graphing it, tell whether the line through the point rises, falls, is horizontal or vertical. So on A, I'm going to choose a point to be y2. So let's say that's 3. I'm going to subtract y1. You have to be really careful with negative signs because I need to put in parentheses, and that will turn out to be 3 plus 2. So that equals 5. And then on bottom, I'll go back to the same point that I chose my 3 from. So it's a 1 minus a negative 6, or 5 over 7. And so, because m is greater than 0, the line rises. It's positive. Okay, on B, I have 2 minus negative 1, or 3, and then 2 minus 2, which is 0. So that's dividing by 0, and it's undefined because the line is vertical. So checkpoint. Go ahead and do those 2 checkpoints and start the video again when you're done. Slopes of parallel and perpendicular lines. Consider 2 different non-vertical lines, L1, L2. And they have slopes M1 and M2. Lines are parallel if and only if they have the same slope. So M1 equals M2. Notice that these will have different y-intercepts. So you know they're parallel if they have the same slope here. But different y-intercepts. So you can tell straight from looking at its formula. Perpendicular lines are perpendicular if and only if their slopes are, let me find that word, negative reciprocals. And the way I say this, because negative reciprocals is kind of a long-sounding term, I say it's a flipped over opposite. So a slope would be, if a slope is 1, its negative reciprocal would be, flip it over in a fraction. So 1 over 1, and it's still 1, but then change the sign. So if it's 5, flip it over in a fraction, 1/5, change the sign, negative. If it's negative 1/2, flip it over, 2, change the sign, positive. So M1 equals negative 1 over M2. Or if you multiply M1 and M2, you're going to always get negative 1. So go back to my examples, multiply these out. You see how you get negative 1 every time. Okay, example 3. Tell whether the lines are parallel or perpendicular. So line 1 goes through those 2 points. Let's figure out its slope. 5 minus negative 1 over 2 minus negative 3. That's 5 plus 1 is 6. 2 plus 3 is 5. And it's 6/5. Now, for the next slope, we have 1 minus negative 4 over negative 3 minus 3. And that would be 1 minus negative 4. 1 plus 4 is 5. Negative 3 minus 3 is negative 6. And are they parallel or perpendicular? The slopes aren't the same. And when we multiply these together, we get negative 1. So the slopes are negative reciprocals. Of each other. So the lines are perpendicular. And this is how you show perpendicular. Checkpoint. Tell whether the lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Neither, when they want the same slopes, and when you multiply the slopes together, there'll be some odd number, like 27 or negative 2. They just will not equal negative 1.